Emil went home and found Lina sitting on the kitchen step moaning about her toothache, with Alfred and Ida standing by helplessly. "There's only one thing to do. You'll have to go to Smarpelle," said Alfred. Smarpelle was the smithy in Lonnenberger, and he was the man who pulled aching teeth with his big fearsome pincers. "How much does he charge for pulling out a tooth?" asked Lina between sniffles. "1 an hour," said Alfred, and Lina shuddered when she realised how expensive it was and how long it might take. Emil thought hard, and then he said, "I'll get rid of your tooth cheaper and quicker. I know exactly how to do it." And then he explained to Lina and Alfred and little Ina what he was going to do. "I only need 2 things, Lucas and a long piece of cobbler's twine. I'll tie the twine round your tooth, Lina, and I'll tie the other end to the back of my belt. Then I'll gallop off on Lucas, and ploff, out comes a tooth." "Ploff, indeed. Thank you very much," said Lina. "There's going to be no galloping off with me." But just then her tooth gave a terrible twinge, and that made her change her mind, and she gave a deep sigh. "Oh, all right, we'll try it. Lord protect me. Oh, poor me," she said, and went to get some twine. Then Emil did exactly what he said. He led Lucas to the kitchen step, and when he had finished tying both ends of twine, he mounted Lucas. Poor Lina whimpered and moaned when she stood tied up behind the horse's tail. Then little Ida trembled, but Alfred said cheerfully, "Now all we have to do is wait for the ploff." Emil set off at a gallop. "It'll soon come out now," said little Ida. But it didn't, because Lina set off at a gallop too. She was so afraid of the ploff that would come as soon as the thread was taut that she bolted forward just as fast as Lucas, in a dreadful panic. Emil yelled at her to stop, but it made no difference. Lina ran. The twine hung slack, and there was no ploff. Emil had made up his mind to help Lina get rid of her tooth, so he headed for the nearest fence, and Lucas sailed over it. Lina followed behind, terrified out of her wits, and she sailed over it too. Little Ida was watching, and you can be sure that as long as she lived she had never forgot the sight of Lina with her swollen cheeks and bulging eyes and the twine hanging out of her mouth, leaping over the fence and screaming, "Stop! Stop! I don't want a ploff!" Afterwards Lina was ashamed of herself because she had spoiled everything, but by then it was too late. So she sat on the kitchen step again, nursing her tooth and looking miserable. But Emil didn't give up. "Well, I'll just have to think of another way," he said. "Yes, but can we have one that's not quite so fast?" said Lina. "That nasty tooth doesn't have to come out with a ploff. You can just as well pull it out slowly." And after Emil thought for a moment, he knew how to do it. Lina had to sit down on the ground with her back against a big pear tree, while Alfred and Ida looked on curiously. Emil tied her tightly to the trunk with a strong rope. "Now see if you can run," he said. And he picked up the twine which was still hanging out of Lina's mouth and went to the grindstone that Alfred used to sharpen the scythe with, and Emil's father used to sharpen axes and knives. He tied the twine to the handle, then all he had to do was turn the handle. "It won't be a quick ploff, it'll only be a drrrr. It'll come out slowly, the way you want it to," said Emil. Little Ida shuddered, Lina howled, and Emil began to turn the handle. The twine, which at first lay slack on the ground, grew tauter and tauter and tauter. The tauter it got, the more terrified Lina became, but she couldn't run away this time. "It will come soon," said little Ida. But then Lina screamed, "Stop, I can't stand it!" And in a flash she whipped out a little pair of scissors from her apron pocket and cut the twine. Afterwards she was ashamed and more miserable than ever, because she really did want to get rid of the tooth, but this was all too ridiculous. Emil and Alfred and little Ida were not pleased at all, and Emil said, "Sit there with your old tooth, I'm not going to bother any more." Then Lina said that if Emil would try just once more, she wouldn't do anything silly, cross her heart and swear to die. "Well, this time the tooth is coming out, even if it's the death of me," said Lina. "Bring more twine." Emil agreed to try, and Alfred and little Ida brightened up when they heard this. "I think it's best to do it quickly," said Emil. "It must be done in such a way that you can't spoil it, even if you are afraid." And inventive as he was, Emil soon hit on a new idea. "We're going to put you on the roof of the cowshed, then you'll jump into the haystack, and before you're even halfway down, out will come the tooth. Ploff! Ploff! said little Ida with a shudder. But in spite of all her promises, Lina wouldn't climb on the roof. No one but Emil could think of anything so horrible, she said, and she remained stubbornly sitting on the kitchen step. But her tooth was aching more and more, and at last she stood up with a deep sigh. Oh, we'll try it, even if it kills me. Alfred quickly placed a ladder against the gable of the cowshed, and Emil climbed up it. Holding the twine firmly in his hand, he led Lina like a dog on a leash. She climbed obediently behind him, although she complained all the time. Emil also carried a hammer and a strong 6-inch nail. As soon as he had hammered the nail firmly into the ridge, he tied the loose end of the twine to it, and now everything was ready. Now jump, ordered Emil. Poor Lina. She sat astride the ridge, and when she looked down and let out a heart-rending cry, she could see Alfred and little Ida down there with their faces looking up at hers. They were waiting for her to come flying down from heaven like a comet and land in the haystack. Then Lina's wailing became even more desperate. I can't. All right then, if you want to keep your old tooth, I don't care, said Emil. That caused Lina to bellow so loudly that she could be heard all over Lonnenberger. Then she stood up on trembling legs at the very edge of the rooftop, swaying backwards and forwards like a fir tree in a storm. Little Ida covered her eyes with her hands. She dared not look. Oh dear, wailed Lina. Jumping from the cowshed roof would be terrible even without a sore tooth. But as she knew that there was going to be a horrible plough halfway down, it was almost more than Lina could bear. Jump, Lina, shouted Alfred, jump. Lina moaned and shut her eyes. I'll just start you off, said Emil, like the nice boy he was. All he had to do was give her a poke in the back with one finger, and she sailed off the roof with a shrill scream. And sure enough, there was a little plough. But it was only the 6-inch nail coming out of the rooftop. Lina lay in the haystack with her tooth still safe and sound in her mouth, and the nail hanging on the other end of the twine. And now she was cross with Emil. Well, you can think up your tricks all right, but when it comes to pulling teeth, you're no good at it. However, it was a good thing that Lina got cross, for she went straight to Smarpelle in a fury. He gripped the tooth in his fearsome pincers, and it came out with a plough, and afterwards Lina threw it away in Smarpelle's junkyard and marched off home.